This is Talk the Home of Common Sense with me, Julia Hartley-Brewer. Since the moment I got up this morning and saw this story about this report that has been sent to the Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, basically saying, can you record biological sex where it matters rather than what gender someone thinks they are, because it matters for crime stats. It also matters in the health issues, happens in education, matters in so many different circumstances. The person I most want to talk about it with was Maya Forstater. I'm delighted to say she joins us right now. She's Executive Director of Sex Matters, a campaign group for, let's face it, sanity. Maya, what did you make of this report when you saw it? Explain how significant this report is.
It's hugely significant. It was commissioned by the last government, but it's been published by this government, by the Department for Science, which is responsible for data. And it's already been welcomed by the Secretary of State for Health, Wes Streeting, who says that he will act on it in the health and social care system, which is, one of the most obvious places where sex matters. Yep. But as you say, it exposes how government departments across crime, education, every government department and health, obviously, is recording gender identity instead of sex. Yeah. And so it needs a government-wide solution.
And the thing is, in no other area of life do we record what someone's perception is. Like, for instance, I'm 56, but, I feel 23. I can't put on an official form that I'm 23. That's a lie. That you'd be giving incorrect information. But if I perceive that I am actually a man trapped in a woman's body, that's absolutely fine, Julia. Thank you very much. We'll take note of that. I mean, that's the absurdity of this. And when you actually point that out, if I chose to identify, I identify as a black woman, not a white woman. That probably wouldn't be considered acceptable. But for some reason, when it comes to men and women, we've accepted, seems large parts of our institutions, that is okay. But the importance here is about data, isn't it? We had the census in 2021, which was asking about gender, and there was a legal case about that. We've got crime stats, which are now showing this huge spike in violent and sex crimes by women because they're being recorded as being carried out by women when actually they are men who claim that they are women. And we're seeing health screenings, prostate cancer screenings for men, apparently not being sent to men who now identify as if they're a woman because, well, they're not men, are they, officially? On their documentation, they're women, even though they've still got prostate. And women who now claim that they're living as a man, not being called up for cervical smears, for mammograms. And this is life or death stuff, isn't it?
It really is. And there were things in there that were quite shocking, that a parent can change their child's sex from a baby, and that there are cases of this happening. And when they change your sex in the National Health Service, they don't just keep your records and change your sex, they change your national health number. So they give you a whole new blank record, and then in theory they transfer your data over, but they might well, they have to print it out, scan it, put it back in again. So they're losing people's data, including children who have turned up at A&E with self-harm and so on, and that information is not getting back to their GP because their GP's records have been changed.
I mean, this really, and we've seen this even with doctors' records. It's been in the news recently, where doctors, when they change their gender identity, the General Medical Council, which keeps a record, from the moment you qualify, you are this person with this registration number, and if there are any complaints or disciplinary proceedings against you, concerns about your ability to safely work as a doctor, those miraculously disappear in the same way as your criminal record could disappear once you change your legal identity.
Or not even your legal identity. That's the thing. It's just what you want to be called. And so the one of the shocking things in the report is the police national computer, where they allow people to record themselves how they like, and they recognise that means that they might arrest somebody and not realise the previous things they'd done because they couldn't link their identity to their previous name and sex. And that's
whereas if I just changed my name to Julia Smith, there would be a record that I was previously called Julia Hartley-Brewer, and they'd be able to check my record.
Yes.
But if I changed my name to Julian Hartley-Brewer and changed my gender identity, they wouldn't be able to see that.
Exactly, because they wouldn't be searching in the women. They'd only be searching in the men, so they wouldn't find that you might have been called Julia Hartley-Brewer. So the
Wow.
implications of this is really serious. It's not just for data and research and screening, it's for individual safety.
Yeah.
And I hope the government is going to now see that it's common sense. They need to solve this.
Well, I mean, it sounds like Wes Streeting, who has been pretty sensible a lot of this stuff, or once in office, about this. But we still never, Yvette Cooper, it would appear less so. But we do know, we're talking about institutions across the board, whether it's, the police, the police college, the judiciary, schools, every single government department, the health service. I mean, across the board, these institutions utterly captured by this ideology. It's interesting, we'll hear a lot of Tories criticising this in the coming days and weeks. We've seen quite a lot of that since, because they've suddenly gone, oh, this is terrible. Oh, when did this happen? Yeah, while you lot were in charge, that's when this happened. How did it happen, though? Because how did we go from a completely sane world where we all knew there was male and female, but there were some men who liked wearing dresses and some women who'd rather be sort of live a man's life. And none of us were really bothered about it. It didn't really matter to us. We live and let live is how most British people live, I think. How did we then get to a point where we were all expected to sort of deny the past, deny reality, deny facts? How did that happen in all of our institutions so quickly?
There's a really interesting graph in this report that shows how this happened over really since 2014 on the data side. And what happened was, for years and years, they used to collect sex, male and female. And then about 20 years ago, they started saying gender, but they still meant sex. It was just like, a little bit more polite, I suppose.
I always thought that gender was the same thing as sex.
Yes, exactly.
It used to mean the same thing, yeah.
Yes, and you'd get a paper form, and if it said sex, people would write yes, please on it. So they changed it to gender, and then.
God, I love British people. Well done, everybody.
But then it shifted from gender to being gender male or female to being gender male, female, other, prefer to self-describe, and that means you've switched out sex for gender identity. You're no longer collecting sex. You're collecting this other thing. And nobody had decided it. It was, it's been done on hundreds of tiny decisions within organisations, with people wanting to be kind, with people.
Do you think the motives were good then? So people they just wanted to be nice.
I think some people wanted to be nice. I think people were definitely driven by Stonewall telling them to do this and getting Stonewall points, which the civil service should never have done. They should have followed the law. They should have followed science.
And just to clarify, people who've been blissfully unaware of this stuff, Stonewall is obviously an organisation that was so important in getting gay rights. When gay and bisexual men and women did not have equal rights with straight people, the fantastic work that they did, fully supported all of that, rights to marriage, civil partnerships, and adoption, all of that. I couldn't be more behind all of that. But that was about getting rights for people who didn't have the same rights as other people, were facing massive discrimination in the workplace and elsewhere. And then basically, once all those rights were won, Stonewall kind of figured, oh, we need another cause. And it turns out that trans was the cause. But again, trans people didn't have the same rights as everyone else, did they?
Well, everyone has the same rights to have their. I mean, everyone has a sex. Whatever else you call yourself, everyone has a sex. And everyone's sex is needed, particularly for their own health care, but also for, single-sex services, sport, for example. I mean, the good thing is the government's got this bill going through right at the moment called the Data Bill. Yeah. And the aim of the Data Bill is to make sure that people are able to access and use accurate data about themselves. So they could fix this. They could fix this once and for all. And that's Peter Kyle from the Department of Science who published this research and now has the solution in his hands in the Data Bill.
Well, that would be useful. But I say, just coming back to Stonewall though, huge number of organisations, government departments, pretty much every non-government organisation paid for by taxpayers, most public institutions, and many private firms, big and small, basically paid Stonewall, this organisation, and other trans ideological pushing organisations to basically give them a big tick to say, yes, sort of like, your kite mark, wasn't it, for being a trans ally. And you had to prove that you were doing lots of different things. And there was a checklist of things. And you paid, I think, was it $3,000 or something? They got a lot of money, a lot of income from this. But businesses had to do this to get this little kite mark and approval and be on this list from Stonewall. And pretty much everyone, for some reason, decided they needed this.
Yeah, I mean, lots of universities, public bodies, police, fire service, and big corporations. Mainly, the government departments have come out of it now, but there are still lots and lots of employers doing it.
Yeah.
Stonewall have said that 25% of the UK workforce were working for employers that were part of the Stonewall scheme.
Wow.
They'd signed up to it thinking this was the right thing to do, this was about equality, and they ended up destroying the integrity of their data and of
Yeah.
their system and forgetting about other people's rights.
Yeah. And that's the thing. I mean, when it comes to someone who is trans missing out on being called up for a screening for their particular sex, in terms of prostate or a mammogram screening, that they're losing out. That is a life or death matter. But when it comes to certainly criminal and criminal justice situation, that impacts other people. So you know what? It's our business as well. What hope do you have that this government is going to take action on this, given that we still have a Prime Minister who quite bizarrely thinks that 99.9% of women don't have a penis, but seems to think that 0.1% of us do, which is some 30,000 of us apparently?
I'm feeling optimistic this morning. I think this report lays out so clearly that this is common sense. I think the fact that the health minister has responded today is a really good sign. And I think because data is digital now, you can't
Yeah.
fix it in one place and leave it inaccurate in another place
Yeah.
because it all mixes together. You have to fix it across all government systems in order for us to be able to trust them.
Yeah. Well, I like your optimism. I'm going to keep my fingers crossed. We'll see. My Forstater, again, you know you're my hero, a wonderful campaigner on this issue. Just, you only just have to have a little bit of sanity, a little bit of common sense to be a hero on this. Executive Director of Sex Matters, my Forstater, thank you.